Hey everyone, welcome back. I just wanted to create this video as an overview really, but it may go a little deep depending on what happens, how this unravels. I'm going to keep it short, but the nature of the topic is that it can go down some rabbit holes. But I don't want to do that to the detriment of trying to make the point. And the point is that you need to look at your business as a system at all times, and you have to have that as a motivator. If I look at how I want to operate as a business, as an organization, as an individual, I want to be able to sit back and go deep on certain tasks that help the whole, right? So it's very satisfying to be able to say that you are in charge of the whole, because then that means you've successfully done a lot of things which people want to do, such as delegating certain tasks and systematizing and bringing people put into those systems that you create, and you freed yourself from the business. So it's kind of like a nirvana point that people want to reach, and it's a really good place to be, and it's a motivator. You always want to try to think about being in that situation, and it's hard because it's hard in this world to pull back and think in terms of systems and to plan, because when we're not in that state, we are tied down or like pulled down, like as if by gravity, into like minutiae. And so to pull yourself out of that and be able to survey and think about what needs to be done, it sounds easy in practice, like closing the laptop, putting out a piece of paper and a pen and mapping things out and thinking about the future and thinking about what needs to happen and planning all this stuff. But in reality, we're conditioned to being sucked down into minutiae, like a gravitational pull. And so the easy part really is when you have time, space, pen, paper, is mapping things out, because your mind will start working. If you want to think about getting into a flow state or just being peaceful and just having the room to focus on something, it's a very nice place to be. And then it's quite easy. The hard part is extracting yourself from the minutiae in the first place. That pull, that force, that's the difficult bit. Now, this is not meant to be a mindset video, but all that is to say that you want to be motivated by the idea of surveying your business from the top, if you like. And the more you can be motivated by that, then the more you're going to look for the opportunities and the tools and the ways by which you can achieve that, right? Now, one of the ways we do this is by laying out the pieces of the marketing funnel. And we do this in a module inside of the program I created, which is called the Platforms Map. And it's a very pivotal module because up to this point, we think very high level about what we want the business to look like and who we're solving problems for, and what is our niche and all that. And then the Platforms Map is the first time that we start to do what I said, like deliberately engineer the system. And like I said, it's a marketing funnel. Because obviously the key thing everyone wants, well, everyone I speak to, the key thing they have problems with is acquiring new customers in order to grow. And they feel they haven't reached a kind of critical mass of people to say they have a brand yet, and they haven't reached anyone in a consistent fashion. It's always been very hit and miss. And there's no relationship between action and reaction. So in other words, I do this particular method of marketing and it yields these results. And so what we aim to do is put this marketing funnel into the business and also get people thinking that their business is the marketing funnel, right? We won't go into that, it's a whole other video, but recruiting a customer, bringing them into your ecosystem, selling them a product, delivering the product, and then having an after sales funnel in place, thinking about the long-term lifetime value of that customer. That's a business operation, isn't it? Supplying the right product at the right price, making a good offer, reaching the right people, and then delivering on the product. And the product has to do what you said it would do on the tin. And then customer is happy enough to want to come back and re-enter a post-purchase funnel, which is where the gold is, by the way, because it's technically for free. You've already recruited the customer in the first funnel, if you like. So all of that is a business. And I can't remember the name of the guy who said it, but he said that Peter Drucker said that marketing and business, they're one thing. Marketing is business, and business is marketing. So that's the game you're in. So when we talk about a marketing funnel, really what we could be doing here is planning out, your entire business and just looking at the key places where we have to focus in terms of actual paid marketing. It doesn't really occur at the point where you're sourcing a product. It doesn't really occur at the point of dispatch, although it's important because we want to dispatch on time because that has a good brand, it gives a good impression of the brand, right? So it helps marketing. If everything was late, then we get these bad reviews over here, and it would pull down this entire imaginary funnel, which we haven't built yet, right? Because it would affect people coming in the top because people check reviews. So yeah, all that's to say, marketing affects everything. But let's keep this video on course. So I said this video could go down some rabbit holes, but I at least want to stay down the right rabbit hole. So the platforms map is the actual black and white marketing funnel part of the business. So forgetting these more wishy-washy applications of marketing like dispatch and all that stuff, not forgetting that's critical. But this is the digital marketing aspect of your business. And what we do is we engineer this. So inside of the program, we work together to build it. So in other words, I give you the assets and the resources and everything you could possibly need to build it for your business. Bearing in mind, every business has its little nuances, right? Or past experiences of what works and what doesn't work. And then we build it, or you execute on it and you build it. And then what we do is we just start to run that system and we iterate and we improve things and we tweak things and we eliminate bottlenecks until we've really created with you something that looks like a machine. So I said at the start, marketing is usually unpredictable, whereas this is a transformation where it becomes predictable because it's mechanized, it's systematized. And so what we'll look at now really quickly is what this machine looks like. So what I encounter when I talk to people is they're usually in that state where they've been trying different things. Like probably 3, 4, 5 times a week, I hear that phrase, I've tried, ... And, there's a lot of stuff you can try. That is just 5 things, but there are more than that. We can get off into these kind of new age, if you like, platforms like TikTok and all that stuff. Maybe Pinterest is kind of like an older school version of like new platforms, but still. And we'll leave these over here for now. In fact, I'm not even going to focus on those right now. But these are typically the things people have tried, the mainstream. And typically people think they should be doing these as well. And so they're kind of torn. And the mindset is, I must do as much as possible. But the problem is, it hasn't been systematized. And so there's no correlation between, if I do this activity, I get this outcome, right? In other words, action, reaction. So nothing has been correlated in that sense. So the desire is to do as much as possible because that feels right. but how much do you do in each thing? You know, you only have so much time, money, energy, and resource to put into a day or a week or a month of marketing. So just to say I do as much as possible of everything, well, nothing here carries equal. None of these have an equal output. So, you know, you're familiar with the 80-20 principle. So that would dictate that 80% of your efforts are wasted, really. And that really only 20% of what you do is actually moving the needle. Okay. So if we look at all of these platforms, only 20%, let's say these are all paid. So forget SEO for a second. But let's say we are investing money in, say, each of these main traffic sources here. Only 20% of the money invested is actually generating you 80% of your revenue. And probably one of these platforms is coming up with the 80%. And this isn't like just a nice phrase, 80-20. It's a law of nature. It doesn't have to be 80-20, it could be 90-10. If we just call it the Pareto principle, or if we do refer to it as 80-20, we just bear in mind it doesn't have to be that number. But we see this everywhere and we see it all the time. And it is a law of nature. And so you neglect it at your peril. So a person who says, I need to do as much as I can, struggles because how much effort and time do they put into each one? And what ends up happening is they try to do kind of equal on each, right? But there's one which should have all of their time and attention. And then if they took away all their energy and time, resources and money from all the others, they could redirect all of that back to the right one, okay? So when I talk to people, they say, you know, I've tried these different things. They also say, I don't know what I should be doing, which kind of implies, I know that one of these is better, but I don't know which one it is. And the next thing people say is, you know, I tried this, and it sort of worked, but I don't know what to do with that. Like, I don't know how to do more of what worked. So these are people who know something worked, which is rare, because when people are doing all these different things, they very rarely know any reaction. In other words, they suddenly get some sales, but they couldn't tell you how they actually got those sales. It just seemed like a bit of a fluke. And then there's other people that knew they did some good Facebook ad, right? But they don't know then what to do with that. So how do I keep that going? Because these tend not to work for very long, right? So I came up with the module, the Platforms Map. And we'll just go through that really quickly now and just kind of tie a bow on all this for now. So the Platforms Map is just the interrelatedness of all of these things. And I say interrelatedness because it is a system. And all of these things are, you know, a legitimate part of the system, but they all have their place. So let's just go through what this might look like. So in the program and with all of the businesses where we actually do this for them on their behalf, you know, we build engineer these platforms maps, all these systems, and we usually hand it back to the business, or we go on running it, but in a very close relationship with the business, okay? Because you can never separate marketing from the business. This is where most people who hire agencies get it wrong, and the agencies don't understand that either. Marketing is not a separate thing, so we have to work very closely together. This is why the program works best, because you do this with my help. So we look at these two primary traffic sources, Facebook and Google, and we can lump, let's just put Instagram with Facebook, because they really are, they're very different in platforms, but they're operated off of Facebook ads, right? Facebook owns Instagram, obviously. And one of these is very intent based. So as you can probably guess, that would be Google Ads. We'll call it intent led. Not always, right? Because you've got things like display network. So display network is a little bit more like Facebook, where we are showing an ad in a more passive way. In fact, if we want to refer to it as active and passive, that is one of the these are some of the terminologies we use in the program. And so we will say this is not intent based. Just keep it simple. We're not saying these people on Facebook don't have intent to buy something. Of course they do, otherwise Facebook ads wouldn't work. But over here, people are researching their purchase, right? They know they need something and they're looking for options to fill that need. Or they now know what product they need to fill the need and they're just shopping from a range of possible products. And these two both work, but one is going to work more than the other. And usually Facebook works more than Google in the longer run as well. So let's say you sell car parts, then Google is a very good place to start, because typically people are not browsing Facebook and then realize they would quite like to buy a new water pump, right? Typically a water pump has failed and they're looking for a replacement, and it needs to be a certain make. Maybe price comes into it, but maybe not so much because it's urgent. Maybe they're looking at things like service delivery. How fast am I going to get the water pump, right? Whereas if you launched a new product, let's say you created, let's say it's a new pen holder. Staring at a pen right now. It's a new pen holder that is more ergonomic. It looks better. It makes your pen easily accessible at all times. I don't know, silly example, but it's something which solves a problem perhaps for a certain group of people. You know, maybe it's pitched at people that work at a desk all day. Maybe it's some desk-based gadget. You can think of something. Well, then Facebook's a good place. It's interruption-based marketing, and it's still based on intent in a certain way, because you're bringing about the problem in someone's mind. You know that people have this problem. Otherwise, you wouldn't have picked this product that solves the problem, or you wouldn't have created and invented this product. So people have this need for it. And so, yeah, you are creating the intent on Facebook. Whereas on Google, the intent exists already. So where there is intent already for your product, Google can work really well for you. And what we want to do is maximize that, because we can use skills and methods and tactics on Google which can get clicks for cheap, and we can go after the right keywords, and we're then reaching people who are in the market to buy what you want to buy. Google's getting very clever. We don't rely on automation, and we don't rely on anything like smart shopping, or a lot of the time we're not even using the automated bid strategies. Again, that's another video. But what we are doing is getting very granular. We're going after certain keywords. We're layering in a lot of Google's new tools and things like audience, interest groups, affinity audiences, and in-market audiences to get razor sharp on who we want to reach. Make sure we're bidding for the right people and bringing the right quality traffic to the store. So if you are selling products which are intent-based and intent-led, then Google can be a very big platform for you. But one business I'm working with right now is pretty much, they're doing 100K a week. In fact, more than that. We just did 150K in the last week of August. But what is happening here is we're finding that we are starting to hit the limits of Google. We could raise that ceiling if we brought in more products, but right now, as regards the existing product range, which is already very large, we can't get more demand. It's not like we can just conjure up more demand, almost. But Facebook, for that particular business, is quite a small affair right now, but it's still working. You can see it's probably 80-20 right now. So 80% of sales originate from Google, 20% from Facebook. But Facebook has this revenue generating potential, which is potentially limitless, because you can create demand on Facebook. So imagine if we took this $150,000 a week business and we flipped it so that Google was now 20%, and Facebook was 80% of the business. So that'd be a very nice situation for that business. I have no idea what the mathematics are to work that out, but I'm sure someone could tell me. But that is, it's a lot of money. It's not always possible. It depends on what you sell, but we can flip that way. So we can create intent on Facebook. So going back to the start, one of these will be a bigger platform for you. But in all cases, these two feed one another. If you imagine we create demand here, a lot of people think very small. They just think about the next few months in terms of time scale, and they think about the size of their business in maybe in terms of a number of revenue. But you want to get good at thinking big, because then you can always think big and aim high and fall short, and then you still have a great business. But if you kind of aim low or think small, you might fall short, and then you end up with a really small business. So you can create intent on Facebook, and then you can have intent show up on Google. So imagine creating demand for a product which has perhaps fallen out of favor. We have someone that creates, or is unknown. Like we have someone who makes whistles. I had to even look up what he meant by whistle when I first spoke to him. Did he mean the thing that the referee blows at a game, or something you use to recall a dog? Or is this like an instrument? And it was kind of like a flute. Or what's the other thing? Piccolo, something like that. Anyway, it's a very simple wind instrument. And it's got all these benefits. It's got all these massive health benefits. It's good for mental health and cognitive ability. And it's part of a kind of Lord of the Rings niche. That's just one side of it. Another side, there are lots of professional musicians. There's people in orchestras that use these things. But it's got all of these different uses. And potentially, Facebook could be used to build demand, to build intent for that product. Think of brand new products which are now mainstream. They all started by planting a seed, by giving someone the idea, this can solve a problem. And then the demand followed. So often we can be on Google and we can intercept demand that we ourselves create. Maybe there's not many alternatives in the market yet, or maybe they drop straight in here, or maybe there are alternatives, but we become the authority through using Facebook ads. We position ourselves to be the authority, and people come and buy direct, or they maybe go to Google first and check us out, and then they check out our competition, and then they buy. Okay. So Facebook can be enormous, and if you think about running your ads as effectively as possible on Facebook and on Google, and this is why when I work with people, I insist they come into the training program and see how these are really run, because most people have no idea what they're doing on these. If you can run this really well, what does that mean? You make a profit, and if you make a profit, you can reinvest back into the platform. You keep doing more of what works. You keep growing that demand, and then you keep funneling people through into your marketing funnel. And as you're doing that, you're pumping out more intent into the marketplace, and so more people then start to ask for the product, and then more people might start to come to be intent-led and actually look for the product, and they might end up on Google. This is a rabbit hole I didn't intend to go down necessarily with this video, but like I said, this is just a high-level look at things, and we'll just see where things go with it. So there's two primary platforms. One is intent-led, one is non-intent-based. It's passive, but we can create intent over here. And typically a business that I work with, one will fit one of these two initially. And like I said, if they do fit Google first, there's still room for Facebook later. And the 80-20 might flip over, and we might be more into Facebook than Google. So then we want to attract these people, but there's this interrelatedness of everything. So let's say we bring people to your store. I'm going to try and wrap this up into a conclusion shortly. What happens when people come to a store? If your store has a 2% conversion rate, then that means 98% of people are leaving the store. And this tells us a lot about people's behavior in the first place. Most people that drop in a store are not ready to buy, especially if they've come from Facebook, unless it's a really killer offer that's ending today and it's something people just absolutely have to have. Then it's not going to happen straight away. There's going to have to be a little bit more that goes on in here. So let's just go through what a typical setup might be. Let's say you start with a high intent keyword for a product which you sell, and you bring on Google and you bring people to your store. Well, then what happens is people leave, which is fine, because we don't expect people to buy in the first place. And the other thing that people don't think about these days, they're looking at people spending just a minute or two on their store and then leaving, and they get downhearted, is remember people are very, very distracted. We watch recordings of people using tools like Hotjar, like Lucky Orange, and people say, I don't know why people they were looking at the item page and they just left. And these tools are helpful because when I look at them, I'm looking for some obvious reason why they left. Like they went to a place, they saw something, and it was a trigger, and the trigger was them leaving. But if people just leave, it's probably because they had a call on their phone, a text message, they had a push notification, they had an email, they had to pick their kid up from school, or they were at work. People are very distracted. We live in a hyper distracted culture. So we can't expect that to be the end of the story. So the next thing we have to do is remarket. And so what we might do is remarket on Facebook. Right, so anybody who came through here or looked at a certain page on here gets to see an ad here. And then maybe they come back to the store. Maybe they still don't buy. Right, so maybe they go through to checkout and then they abandon at this point. They get a bit further this time. Well, then what happens there? Well, we send them an email, and then we might send them another one, and then we might send them another one. Right, on this one we might offer them a discount. And then what if they still didn't buy? Well, they've left again, and now they're going to get some emails, but they're also going to see our Facebook ad. Right, now Facebook ad might repeat the discount that's on the third email, and then they might come back, and then we might get the order. Okay, so that would be what I would call a platforms map. So when people are saying, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what I should be doing first, well, just do this, just engineer this. So first of all, you're looking at, well, where is most of my traffic likely to come from? Am I selling something which has an intent behind it already? The people already want what I sell. Then bringing them to the store. And we're trying to keep people in the store as much as possible, but we don't want an uber high conversion rate, because if we do, that's telling us we're not getting enough volume through the store. A lot of people obsess over conversion rates, but conversion rate is something where you want to find a nice balance. It doesn't want to obviously be ludicrously low versus the amount of traffic you're paying for, because then obviously you're overpaying for traffic. You want to turn that traffic into orders. A lot of the time people I talk to, they're bringing the traffic to the store and that's the end of the story. There's none of this underneath. So you've just wasted money bringing people here, knowing they were more likely than not to leave. And then people blame the traffic sources, which is not the case. So we're trying to keep people in here. We're trying to easily get them to what they need to buy. We're trying not to send them away. I always say to people, invert. So if you really didn't want someone to buy from your store, what would you do to put them off? I'd post a ludicrously long delivery time, or I wouldn't mention delivery times, right? Or I'd have I'd have hidden fees, and I'd have no returns policy, etc. So think about what would put you off is a good rule to use. And then we just accept a lot of people are going to leave, so we retarget to them, we bring them back, maybe we bring them back to a different page this time. Maybe we send them straight back to the product they were looking at, or maybe we send them to a landing page with a bit more explanation. Let's say we bring someone from here, we could take them to the store, but we might send them to what I call, well, actually I won't say what I call right now, I'm going to get off on another rabbit hole, but we bring them to a landing page and we might educate them a bit more about this offer which we made on Facebook. And then we might know, yeah, they're going to leave. But then we might bring them back with a bit more information, and then we might make them an offer. We might send them to the product page at this point. So you see, this goes from having all these various platforms to just send traffic to store. It starts looking a bit more ordered. And then we can start saying, okay, this is where we focus. We focus here, right? And we just use Facebook for remarketing. As we're doing this, we're building experience on Facebook though. So later, yeah, we can look at this. We can look at doing more here. Like I said, everyone I work with, we do both. We do Facebook and Google, and one of these two will emerge as the dominant player, but Facebook has a lot of runway ahead of it, a lot. And so, like I said, we could take 150 grand a month business on Google and turn it into a monster of a business using Facebook. So this is a marketing funnel, and there's more to it than this. You know, if someone's bought, what's going to happen then? Well, they're going to get a thank you email. They're maybe going to get an email asking if everything was okay. They're maybe going to get another email in the future offering them a discount off a complementary product, you know, a product which fits the product which they bought. So they bought, you know, a tennis racket. Let's sell them some tennis balls, or let's sell them some tennis shoes, whatever. And we get to engineer these, figure them out. When you start pushing volume through this process is where you start to really fine tune the pieces. Again, we look at 80-20. You know, going through this might be, say we sell a sports store, maybe it's 80% of our revenue comes from tennis. And we can start to engineer our follow-up sequences. We can focus on the people that bought tennis items and write a really good email follow-up sequence to help them to buy another purchase, to make another purchase. We're not really so interested in people who purchased a cricket bat, right? And so you can see then how this starts to inform your whole business. And we talked about systems at the beginning and looking at your whole business as a system. Well, I might be looking at my stock at this point. I might want to make damn sure that I'm very well stocked on my tennis rackets. I want to make sure I have a good relationship with my supplier to get tennis balls at the lowest possible price, because down here, I'm going to make them an offer on some tennis balls, right? The economics of this process is different because when we know how much it's costing us here, and again, we're doing this at the very top 1% level in terms of our running of a Google Ads campaign. When I know the economics of this, how much it costs me to get a customer, I can know with certainty that X percentage of customers are going to buy my tennis ball upsell, right? So suddenly my average order value might be, say it's $100, and then maybe it goes up to $129.99, which means I can afford to pay more for the customer at this point. So we start to build these pieces and start to run these systems, and this starts to fall into place. And sure, we move things around, and it might be this, and this might, you know what I mean? And that's where tracking comes into it. And that's predominantly where you become a business owner. You know, you get to look down on this, and you get to understand how this works. So having this in-house and having a lot of control over this is really important if you're going to really fulfill that role properly as a business owner. So I wanted to take you through this. This is just a look at how it might look as a digital marketing funnel. Also just to introduce the fact that this is, you know, your whole business should be like this. You should be systematizing everything if you want to be a true business owner, if you want to look to grow. Give you some idea of the reach that you could achieve with Facebook versus Google, which is also very important. We could have easily done another video and flipped these two around and said, what happens if we lead with Facebook? How does Google get involved? And Google can be down here instead of Facebook as a remarketing platform. And yeah, we spoke about these being the main things. I don't know what you do watching this video, but I would ignore these for now. You know, this is where you can pump traffic through your system reliably. And these are where you can leverage real top 1% tactics and do that traffic as cheaply as possible. And I talked about action reaction. You know, when you have it like this, you can see that this part relates to this, and people do this action, and then they go here, and then they see this ad, and they come back here, and then they take this action, and then this happens, and this email gets sent, and then we get this output, we get this sale. So it's very nice, it's very orderly, it's very predictable. Anyway, that's it for this video. It's just a high level. I'm not even sure what I'm going to call this video, but let's just we'll just refer to it as the Platforms Map. All right. Thanks for watching. If you need any more input on this, just get in touch with me. Take care. Bye.